That Christmas Eve, the Ohio air cut through me like glass, slipping past the thin fabric of my coat. My phone was still warm in my hand, my grandfather's voice echoing in my head. Bella, come right now. I'm at your parents' new place. I've got something to show you. He had sounded so alive, so eager. My grandfather, William Carter, rarely visited Ohio. Chicago and his construction empire consumed most of his time. The thought that he had chosen this night to see me, to surprise us, filled me with a kind of hope I hadn't dared feel in years. The oak door creaked as I stepped inside. Heat from the fireplace hit me, along with the scent of roasted turkey and mulled wine. At the head of the long dining table sat Grandpa. His silver hair caught the glow of the chandelier. He rose instantly, arms wide, and wrapped me in a hug so tight. I nearly forgot how cold I was. Isabella, he said, stepping back to look me over. This house, it suits you, doesn't it? I froze. The warmth in my chest turned heavy. It's beautiful, I whispered, forcing a smile. But it isn't mine, it's theirs. The room fell still. My father's hand hovered midair with his glass of wine, his knuckles whitening around the stem. Susan's fork clinked against her plate. Her painted smile faltered. What do you mean it isn't yours? Grandpa's tone sharpened, his brow furrowed. I looked between them, confused. My father cleared his throat, avoiding my eyes. Susan jumped in quickly, her voice bright and brittle. Will, Bella's just joking. This is our home, all of ours. You know how she exaggerates. But Grandpa's eyes never left mine. Something shifted in his expression, as though he had been holding on to a puzzle piece. And suddenly, it didn't fit. That was the night everything cracked open. My name is Isabella Carter, and for as long as I can remember, I was the forgotten daughter in my own family. But I never knew how deep the betrayal went, until this moment. This is Revenge Repaid. If stories like mine strike a chord with you, don't forget to subscribe. Because what you're about to hear is only the beginning. I was born in Ohio, in a town where neighbors waved from their porches, and kids rode bikes in the street until dusk. From the outside, everything seemed warm, simple, safe. But inside my home, love had a hierarchy. And I was at the bottom. My mother, Diana, died giving birth to me. I never got to feel her embrace, only the silence she left behind. My father, Gregory Carter, carried that silence like a shield. To him, I was not a daughter, but a reminder of what he lost. When I was 3, he remarried Susan. She was polished, calculating. With a smile that never quite reached her eyes, she gave him a son-Ethan, and from that day, the house revolved around him. Ethan was the golden child. To my father, he was legacy. To Susan, he was perfection. And me, I was tolerated, like a guest who overstayed her welcome. Even as a little girl, I felt the difference. On my 6th birthday, Ethan unwrapped a brand new bike, gleaming red, its tires still smelling of rubber. My gift was a secondhand book with doodles scrawled in the margins. Susan's voice was flat as she handed it over. You should learn to be content with what little you get, Isabella. My father chuckled as Ethan raced circles around the yard. He didn't notice me tracing the faded letters in the book, pretending not to care. When I brought home perfect report cards, my father barely glanced at them. Don't get ahead of yourself. Grades aren't everything. But when Ethan scraped by with mediocrity, it was paraded as proof of his bright future. I wasn't jealous. I only wanted to matter, to be seen. But the more I tried, the more invisible I became. My room was the attic, the smallest space in the house, with a bed that groaned every time I shifted and a draft that seeped through the cracked window pane. Ethan's room, in contrast, had walls plastered with posters, shelves lined with toys, and a television that glowed well past bedtime. One evening, I asked my father if I could move downstairs to the spare bedroom. His answer was swift, his voice sharp. Life isn't fair, Bella. Stop asking for more than you deserve. Those words etched themselves into my heart. Stop asking. Know your limits. Stay in your place. But quietly, I swore to myself, one day I would rise above that place. At 18, I graduated with honors. My name was called, and I walked across the stage to polite applause. No one from my family was there. Ethan had a sports tournament, and apparently that was more important. I clutched my diploma, smiling through the ache in my chest, telling myself I didn't need them. College was my dream. Engineering, I wanted to build bridges, buildings, something lasting, something to prove that I mattered. But when I asked my father about financial aid, his expression turned cold. We can't afford to waste money, Bella. Ethan's future comes first. He has more potential. Potential. That word stung like acid. I nodded, silent. That night, lying in the attic, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, I whispered to myself, if they won't give me a future, I'll carve one out myself. So I worked, first as a cashier, then in the stockroom of the local supermarket. Long shifts, tired feet, rude customers. Every dollar I earned was survival. Every paycheck a reminder that I didn't need them. I saved enough for a tiny apartment peeling paint, dripping faucet, but it was mine. One afternoon, Susan walked through my checkout line. She glanced at my uniform and smirked. So this is where you ended up. Don't expect life to hand you much more. Ethan's path will be very different. I smiled faintly, scanning her groceries, my chest burning. I wanted to tell her that life had already handed me less than nothing, but I bit my tongue. One day, I promised myself, one day she would see. Through it all, there was Grandpa Will. Busy as he was, he always called when he could. His voice was the only anchor I had. Bella, you've got a strength in you your father doesn't see. Don't let anyone shrink it. I never told him the full truth. I didn't want pity. But when he spoke of my mother, how she loved books, how she dreamed of a fairer world, I felt like I wasn't entirely forgotten, like a piece of her lived in me. And so, I carried on. I didn't know then that the house I had just stepped into on Christmas Eve, the house I had congratulated them on, wasn't theirs at all. It was mine. Bought with money meant for me. Stolen behind closed doors. The truth was waiting, like a storm gathering strength, ready to break everything apart. Life after moving out was far from easy, but at least it was mine. My tiny apartment had peeling wallpaper, a faucet that dripped endlessly, and a single lamp that flickered whenever the wind blew too hard. Yet, every corner of that cramped space felt like freedom. I didn't have to hear Susan's barbed comments or endure my father's cold silences. I threw myself into work at the supermarket. I stocked shelves until my arms ached, bagged groceries with a smile, even when customers sneered, and closed up at midnight only to wake before dawn. My paychecks were small, but they were a lifeline. Every dollar meant I could stand 1 inch further, away from my father's house and his unspoken rejection. But still, I carried dreams bigger than my bank account. I wanted college, engineering too. Create something that couldn't be dismissed as unworthy. On quiet nights, I'd sit by the window of my apartment with textbooks borrowed from the library, sketching out buildings and bridges on scrap paper, my notebooks filled with blueprints of a future I wasn't sure I'd ever reach. Ethan, meanwhile, lived like a prince. My father bought him a new car for his 17th birthday, sleek, silver one that gleamed in the driveway. Susan hosted parties where she paraded him before neighbors, boasting of his natural leadership. Never mind that his grades barely scraped by. Never mind that he skipped classes to play video games or hang out with friends who encouraged his arrogance. He was their golden child, and I was the shadow they ignored. One afternoon at work, as I was refilling shelves, I spotted Susan walking down the aisle. Her cart was piled with imported cheeses, wines, and expensive chocolates. When her eyes landed on me, she tilted her head, her lips curving into that sharp little smile I knew too well. Still here, Isabella. Stocking shelves, she said, her voice dripping with mock surprise. I suppose not everyone's cut out for more. At least Ethan will never have to waste his life this way. I swallowed the sting, forced a polite nod, and went back to stacking jars. But inside, I promised myself one day she'd choke on her certainty. One day, she'd see me rise from the very ground she thought I belonged to. The only light in those years was Grandpa Will. He called when he could, his voice grounding me. He'd ask about my work, about my studies, and he always reminded me, Bella, you are capable of more than they'll ever admit. Don't let their blindness define you. I never confessed the full truth to him. That attic room, the cruel favoritism, the constant dismissal. I didn't want pity, but when he spoke about my mother, Diana, how she loved poetry, how she believed in kindness, I felt something stir, as though part of her still lived in me, urging me not to give up. Still, I couldn't shake the emptiness. I had food, shelter, and the faint glow of independence. But what I didn't have was family. The hollow ache of being unwanted followed me everywhere, echoing louder with every lonely birthday and holiday spent in silence. Then, one humid summer evening, a text buzzed on my phone. It was from Susan. Come to the new house tonight. 1432 Hollow Creek, small gathering. 10 p.m. I stared at the message, stunned. New house. They had never mentioned moving. No one had told me a word. My first instinct was to delete it, to pretend I hadn't seen it. But curiosity clawed at me. Maybe this was a chance to reconnect, even a little. Maybe they were finally opening a door I had been shut out of my whole life. So I went. I stopped at a liquor store and bought an inexpensive bottle of wine. Then, at a small embroidery shop, I picked up a handkerchief. I had ordered a gift with my father's initials stitched carefully in gold. I didn't have much, but I wanted to arrive with something thoughtful. Maybe it would matter. When I reached Hollow Creek, I almost didn't recognize the street. Newly built houses stood in neat rows, lawns manicured, porch lights glowing like jewelry against the evening sky. Their house was cream-colored with stone steps leading to a wide porch. It looked like something from a glossy magazine. Susan answered the door in a silk dress, her smile thin but polished. Oh, Bella, you made it. Come in. The inside was stunning granite counters. Family photos already lined the walls. My father and Susan's wedding portrait, Ethan holding up a trophy. Pictures of their vacations, but not one of me. I handed over the wine and the embroidered handkerchief. Congratulations on the new house, I said softly. My father took them without looking, set them aside unopened, and went back to pouring drinks for their guests. Neighbors filled the living room, laughing and talking about rising property values, school districts, and future backyard pools. I sat quietly on the edge of the sofa, listening. No one asked about me. No one even acknowledged my presence beyond a polite nod. As the evening wore on, Susan's voice carried across the room. We had to fight tooth and nail for this house. Gregory has such a good eye for investments. She looked at my father with pride. He smiled faintly, saying nothing. I forced a smile too, though my heart sank. I wanted to be happy for them. I truly did. But a nagging unease grew in me, something I couldn't name. A whisper that this house wasn't just another chapter in their lives. It was a secret written in walls I wasn't meant to understand. From that night on, I started receiving invitations. Holidays, birthdays, anniversaries. They arrived not with warmth, but with curt texts. Dinner at 6. Family photos after. Family photos. That was the strangest part. For years, I had been excluded from every frame, every picture that hung on the walls. But suddenly, Susan would call me over. Isabella, stand next to Ethan. Closer. That's better. I stood there awkwardly, my father's arm draped over Ethan's shoulder, while I lingered at the edge, smiling faintly. At first it felt strange. Then it felt wrong, because I knew I wasn't part of their memories. I was a prop. The realization lodged in me like a splinter. They didn't want me. They wanted the image of me, an illusion they could use for something I couldn't yet see. And when Christmas came again, the truth would finally reveal itself. A truth that would shatter the fragile picture they had so carefully painted. The December wind cut sharper than usual that year. Snow fell in restless flurries, dusting the streets of Ohio in white. I finished my supermarket shift early and sat in my apartment, cradling a chipped mug of coffee, debating whether to attend the Carter family Christmas dinner. The invitation had arrived as usual, short and cold, 6 p.m. sharp. Don't be late. I considered ignoring it, but then my phone rang. The screen lit up with a name that made my heart skip. Grandpa Will. Bella. His voice thundered warmly through the receiver. I'm at your new house, Hollow Creek. I thought I'd surprise you. I froze. No one had told me he was coming. No one had told me he was even in Ohio. I grabbed my coat, my heart pounding as I rushed out the door. When I arrived, the house glowed with Christmas lights, wreaths hanging proudly, the tree shimmering through the window. Susan opened the door, her smile faltering the moment she saw me. Oh, Bella, you came, unexpected. Behind her, I heard Grandpa's booming voice, Come in, child. I stepped inside. Grandpa stood tall in the living room, silver hair gleaming beneath the chandelier. He pulled me into a hug so fierce, it nearly lifted me off my feet. This house, he said, sweeping his arm around the grand room. It's magnificent, isn't it? Tell me you're happy living here. The world seemed to tilt. My chest tightened. I don't live here, Grandpa. I rent an apartment on the south side. I just visit sometimes. The silence that followed was suffocating. Grandpa's eyes darkened as they darted from me to my father. Gregory stood stiff near the fireplace, his wineglass trembling in his hand. Susan's face went pale, her smile twitching. Ethan shifted uneasily in his seat, avoiding my gaze. What's the meaning of this? Grandpa's voice cracked like thunder. I gave you money, Gregory. $400,000. I told you, clearly it was for Isabella's home. This home, her future. My father's lips parted, but no words came out. Susan's voice rushed in, high-pitched and desperate. Will, you don't understand. Isabella insisted on her independence. She chose to live alone. We thought it best. Enough. Grandpa's shout made the chandelier tremble. Don't you dare twist this. Bella, tell me, did you ever refuse this house? I shook my head, stunned. I didn't even know about it. Grandpa's face hardened. He turned on my father, his voice slicing through the room. You put the deed in your name, didn't you? You stole what was meant for her. Gregory's shoulders sagged. I thought the family would benefit more this way. Bella's strong. She doesn't need a big house. Ethan needs the right environment. Space to grow. I stared at him, my throat burning. Strong? They had turned my strength into an excuse for neglect. Susan's eyes flashed as she blurted out, She's not even my daughter, Will. Ethan is the one with a future. Isabella doesn't deserve, not another word. Grandpa roared, slamming his hand against the table. She is Diana's daughter, my granddaughter. You dare say she doesn't deserve what is hers? The room spun around me. Every awkward family photo I'd been forced into. Every staged smile. They weren't for me. They were for him. Proof for Grandpa that I belonged. A facade to cover their theft. I swallowed hard, my voice steady though my heart trembled. So that's why you suddenly wanted me in your pictures. To fool Grandpa into thinking I was happy here. To hide what you did. Susan's lips parted, but no sound came out. Gregory's eyes dropped to the floor. Ethan sat frozen, caught between guilt and silence. Grandpa turned back to me, his voice low but firm. Pack your things, Isabella, tonight. You're coming with me to Chicago. I'll see to it this house belongs to you, as it should have from the beginning. Susan gasped. Gregory muttered, Will, please, save it from my lawyer, Grandpa snapped. I looked at my father one last time, waiting for something, an apology, a reason, anything, but he stood there, silent, eyes fixed on the floor, as if I were nothing but a ghost passing through. My chest tightened, then slowly released. That was the moment I knew. I didn't need his words anymore. I turned, my boots crunching softly against the floor. Grandpa placed a hand on my shoulder, guiding me out into the frigid night. The house glowed behind me, but to me, it was nothing but stolen light. As we stepped into Grandpa's waiting car, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The snow fell heavy, blanketing the world in silence. And in that silence, I felt something shift. For the first time in my life, I was leaving behind the place where I had been unwanted. Ahead of me waited Chicago, a city I had only heard of in stories. A city where I might finally begin again. Not as the forgotten daughter, but as someone worth remembering. The drive to Chicago was a blur of snow and headlights. The hum of Grandpa's car steadied my racing thoughts. I stared out the window as the Ohio fields gave way to highways and city lights. My chest ached with the weight of betrayal, but beneath it, a strange fire flickered, something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. When we finally pulled up to Grandpa's estate, my breath caught. The house was vast, a mansion of warm brick and sprawling gardens buried under snow. Inside, every corner glowed with life. A grand staircase, tall windows draped with velvet curtains, shelves lined with books, and framed photographs of my mother. For once, I stepped into a home where I wasn't invisible. Grandpa turned to me, his voice softer now. "Bella, this is where you belong. From now on, you'll have every opportunity that was stolen from you. No one will diminish you again." Tears blurred my vision as I whispered, "Thank you, Grandpa, for seeing me when no one else did." He smiled, brushing my hair back, the way my mother might have. "You've always been worth seeing." The weeks that followed changed everything. Grandpa enrolled me at a top university in Chicago. For the first time, I sat in classrooms filled with possibility instead of resentment. Civil engineering lectures lit up my mind. I poured myself into blueprints and projects with a hunger born from years of neglect. My professors noticed. My peers respected me. Slowly, I built the future I had once sketched alone by lamplight in my crumbling apartment. Outside of school, Grandpa introduced me to his world, his construction company, Carter Builds. I started as an intern, learning the ropes, walking through half-finished skyscrapers, feeling the hum of machines, smelling fresh concrete. I listened. I studied. I worked harder than anyone expected. And little by little, I earned my place. Not as Gregory Carter's forgotten daughter, but as Isabella Carter, engineer with fire in her soul. Back in Ohio, the picture was very different. Word spread through relatives and neighbors. Gregory's business faltered after the truth came out. He lost clients, then his job. Susan's carefully curated social circle shrank. Once whispers of their fraud spread, Ethan cushioned, his whole life floundered. Without structure or effort, he drifted, failing out of college, bouncing between short-lived jobs. Then, one evening, years later, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but the voice was unmistakable. "Bella, it's your father." I sat frozen. The city lights of Chicago glowed outside my apartment window. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice even. He hesitated. We need help. Susan's health is failing. Ethan can't find steady work. We're struggling to keep the house. I thought maybe you could spare something. For family. That word, from his mouth, felt like poison. I closed my eyes. Memories flooded back. The attic room, Susan's sneers. My father's silence when I begged for a chance at college. The theft, the staged smiles. When I spoke, my voice was steady, not cruel, just certain. You had your family, you chose them. You made it clear I was never part of it. And now you want me to save the very house you stole from me? He stammered. No, I interrupted. You made choices, and I made mine. Goodbye. I hung up. My hands trembled. Not from guilt, but from release. For the first time, I had cut the final thread that bound me to their shadows. Years passed. I graduated with honors. Carter Builds became my second home. Under Grandpa's mentorship, I rose. From intern to project manager to lead engineer, my blueprints turned into real structures, bridges spanning rivers, towers rising against the skyline. And one day, Grandpa placed a signed document in my hands. Ownership of the company. You've earned it, Bella, he said with pride. This is your legacy now. Build something greater than I ever could. I hugged him, tears slipping down my cheeks. I will, Grandpa. For Mom, for you, for me. Sometimes I think back to that attic room, the cracked ceiling I used to stare at, whispering dreams into the dark. I think of Susan's smirk, of Ethan's trophies, of my father's cold dismissal. And then I look at the skyline I helped shape, the home I built with my own strength, and I smile. I was once the forgotten daughter, the unwanted shadow, but now I am proof that even the deepest wounds can grow into something unbreakable. And when I walk through Chicago streets, the city buzzing around me, I know one thing for certain. I didn't just survive them. I rose above them. This was my revenge. Not through anger, not through destruction, but through becoming everything they said I couldn't be. From an attic room in Ohio to the skyscrapers of Chicago, Isabella Carter proved that even the most unwanted child can rise higher than anyone ever imagined. Her revenge wasn't built on anger, but on becoming everything they said she couldn't. What about you? Have you ever been underestimated, cast aside, told you weren't enough? Remember, sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in fighting back. It's in rising so high, the ones who tried to break you can't even reach. This is Revenge Repaid. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories of betrayal, justice, and redemption. Until next time, stay strong and never forget your worth.